listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah. Gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion has gotta go. Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are live. Today is Sunday, January 22nd, 2012. I'm at Dillahunty, and joining me is Tracie Harris.
Hey.
Welcome. How have you been?
Good, thank you.
I just saw you the other day, but I still, you never know, something bad could have happened. I haven't done the show in, I don't know how long. I can't even remember the last time I did the show.
Nice break.
Yeah, Russell filled in for me, and then he hosted last week, and we were gone over, the holidays. We took an awesome vacation. If you ever get the chance to go swimming with manatees in like Crystal River, Florida, I highly suggest or highly recommend it. We had a good time. This show is a live public access show sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin. Out of Austin, Texas, and you can find out more about the ACA by visiting the webpage www.atheist-community.org. You'll find a frequently asked questions page there, a calendar of events, ways to contact us, including our email address, which is tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to myself and all the people involved in the show. You'll also find our new position statements, which have been posted up there for a little while. I think we've mentioned them before. Want to make sure that got out there as well. And in addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors two other podcasts that are audio only. One of them is The Nonprofits, which is now back up and running. We did our first show of 2012 2 weeks ago, and yesterday we did, it'll still count as a regular episode. Unfortunately, Dennis and Russell couldn't make it, but Schilling and I talked to a representative of the National Atheist Party, and so we had a really good discussion there about what they're trying to do, about why atheists should get involved, about conflicts over the name and things like that, so you can check that out. And the other podcast is Godless Bitches, which is recording, is it recording on Tuesdays now or Wednesdays? Wednesdays now. It was recording on Mondays, but now it's on Wednesdays. And they're much better about making sure that they actually get an episode out than nonprofits are. And the response from that's been great, and we encourage everybody to feel free to keep visiting, keep downloading the podcast, and you can email radio@atheist-community.org or TV or whatever. Just make sure in your subject line you include AETV or NPR or GB in order to get past the spam filters and get your questions and comments in. We appreciate the feedback. After this program's over, those of us involved get together for dinner at El Arroyo on
5th and Campbell.
5th and Campbell. The address is right there on the bottom of the screen. If you're in the Austin area and you want to come down and hang out, any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to join us. You don't have to be a member to attend any of our events. But if you're coming down to preach, proselytize, or provoke, just go ahead and pick up the phone. The number will be up very shortly. It's a live call-in show, and we like to hear primarily from people who disagree, from people who have theistic beliefs, or perhaps in some cases supernatural beliefs that aren't necessarily theistic. We're kind of interested in what you believe and why, in order to determine whether we agree with you or whether we don't agree with you, which is more often the case. But there's been this thing quite often. I've done this show for I don't know how many years now, 7 or
a lot,
whatever, and we get the same questions over and over again. And I don't mind addressing some of the issues over and over. We've hit Pascal's wager and
sure.
the anthropic principle and all kinds of things constantly. One thing that's kind of been a curiosity for me, the people who have, I'm somebody who wants to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. I want to have beliefs that are justified and supported by evidence and sound arguments. And yet there are some people who begin by presenting their position as, I believe in God, and here's my reasons why, as if they can actually make the case, as if they're going to present evidence and argument for it. And when the arguments are countered and when the evidence is refuted, they kind of push back to this, well, I just believe anyway, and you have to take it on faith. The arguments that end there, I don't know that we've accomplished very much about learning why it is that you actually believe. And there's the second subset of people that intrigue me are the ones who say, I believe in a God, but I don't believe this is anything that could be demonstrated. I couldn't prove it to anybody. I just believe it. And to me, those people are just admitting that they believe something without any good reason.
Of course.
And in that case, if you're one of those people, my question then would be, why? Why are you willing to believe something? And do you actually believe, or are you just saying you believe? Kind of like saying, well, I know there's no good reason to think that I'm going to win the lottery, but I really believe I'm going to win it this time. I think that's kind of like just positive talk. It's lip service as opposed to actually believing.
I might actually be able to answer that question just from my past theistic position, because I was so heavily indoctrinated as a fundamentalist that there's a lot of people that write to our list and they say that their beliefs kind of crumbled when their religion crumbled. But I wasn't like that. When my religion fell, I thought my religion was wrong. God exists, but they're not right about it. And so I kind of went on this quest trying to figure out what was right about God. And it didn't even occur to me to think that that belief should be challenged. It just was never challenged, because that to me was sort of like a foundational thing. And so I was willing to say the Bible, I found out the Bible wasn't correct. I found out these, the doctrines that are flowing from this, I have no reason to believe them. I'm not, the whole Jesus thing, I don't even know that wasn't just a person. But I need to know, what is this God? And so I spent probably the next decade searching for God until I finally, examined. It took me that long to figure out that what I was calling God was really nothing more than just everything.
And I can understand that, but if somebody had asked you...
if you had asked me during that time, do you believe in God, I would have said yes. And if you'd asked me why, I'd have been like, I'm not sure. I wouldn't have known. It would have been, the closest I could have described it would have been a feeling. And I think it's instilled through indoctrination into people when they're young that this exists. And so you don't even question it. It's almost like you feel you have a soul and you feel this God. And so you just go on those feelings and you're trusting those feelings because you're thinking to yourself, that's all you've ever been taught to call them. And so it doesn't even cross your mind to think that those feelings should be questioned and that might not be God and soul.
So what's the impetus for tipping over? Is it simply education about
Sadly, for me
standards?
it was like 10 years of searching. I mean, I don't know what would have happened in that time if someone would have confronted me like in the way we do on this program. I think it might have ended in the frustrating conversation where I end up saying, I just don't know, I just feel it. I think that would have been the best you would have gotten at that point.
Well, I mean, there's no denying that now, having worked with you for a number of years here, you have as good or better a grasp on standards of evidence and how we go about discerning reality. To where I don't think you could ever hold that kind of position again on any subject.
Sure.
So there's some fundamental skeptical, critical thinking, evidence-based bit of knowledge or heuristic that you didn't have before that you have now. And I don't know if that kind of came for you as more of a revelation or if this was just little pieces along that decade.
I think it was a couple things. I think that the fundamentalist church kind of taught the concept of science as an authoritarian thing, just like the church. So we were kind of taught that you didn't need to really, you just learn what they teach you in school about science, but you don't know. That's just those scientists, and they don't have reason. They're just making this stuff up, and and so you're kind of taught that science is looked at as authoritarian, and it's the top-down thing, just like religion, and that's how you view it. And you don't. And so during the 10 years that I was searching, I started to figure out that I could actually look this information up, I could study it, I could learn it, and that it wasn't just sort of above me in a way that I could never understand it or never grasp it or get these reasons. And so the more I started to learn about things, I also had to, the tough thing I also had to do was to ask myself, what am I calling God? Like, what am I labeling God? Like, what is it? If it's an existent thing, what is it? And so there were these two things happening where I was like, this is the kind of things that I'm attributing to God. This is how I'm looking at God. This is what I'm thinking of God. And it was very hard just to try to get some sort of focus on what do I even mean by that word.
It's one of the reasons why in a lot of these discussions, one of the best things we can do right off the bat, in addition to telling us, what you believe and why, but to define the what. Don't just say, I believe in God and here's why. I want to know what you mean by God. Because,
and not just what you mean, but I mean specifically, if you're claiming it's existent, what are you pointing at? Like, what existent thing do you think you're labeling as God? Like, what is it that you look at when you're saying God? What are you meaning?
Yeah. Well, we've got calls lined up. Maybe we'll get into some of these questions more. I have no idea. I haven't looked yet to see who's actually called in or what they're going to talk about. As a reminder, anybody who doesn't get through on the phone today or doesn't want to can email tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to myself and everybody involved in the show. We get so much email we can't possibly answer all of it. We try to do the best job we can and read as much of it and take the questions and criticisms to heart. Some discussions and emails tend to go on, like I'll get into a conversation with somebody in email and it'll go on for 8 or 9 back and forth lengthy responses. And the one thing I'd like people to understand is that if at some point the conversation just ends, it's probably because I have a backlog of 600 or 700 emails right now. But all right, let's go to, is it Robert in Huntsville? How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, and wow, that entire opening there just totally almost got me on a total segue of why I was originally calling in.
Okay.
Well, first off, I am a theist. My reason for being a theist is non-empirical, personally personal, that has been shown to me that can't be proven, but as such, I have no right to try and force that upon others, nor proselytize me as being 100% right.
Okay.
I was just going to get that out there. So while I am a theist, I disagree with a lot of the Protestant religions, to be precise, on Eastern Orthodox. Anyway, the reason I was calling was because we're in election season, and I don't know about where you guys are, but being here in Huntsville, it's not about the politics, it's about the religion. And me as one, I'm sick and tired of it, because I see religion having no place in either your political views, lawmaking views, or basically anything to do when you're governing over other people.
Let me jump in for just a second here, because right before the show started, we were talking about how much I've enjoyed kind of following the GOP primary thing. I've been kind of encouraged by this particular cycle, because while certainly there are pockets where religion and religious issues and religious justifications for positions on issues are critical, I think what we've seen from this primary is actually a decrease of that. The Tea Party was predominantly, evangelical Protestants. Not all of their issues were necessarily religious, but they haven't had quite as much of a voice in this particular GOP primary. They've been, and it's scattershot. And it seems to be that the primary concerns, at least among Republicans, are the economy and picking someone who they think can beat Obama. I don't disagree with you. Except it's nice that I love the fact that the Constitution clearly states that there should be no religious test for any public office or trust. On the other hand, when we're talking about what people believe and why, I'm not testing the candidates based on their religion. I'm testing them based on what they actually believe and their reasons for it. And I think that the public has a right to know what people believe about certain things, maybe not everything, and certainly not every one of their beliefs is going to impact policy. But I think the public has a right to know, and we have an interest in knowing what their justification is to determine if we're electing or possibly electing someone who's going to, be rational, use evidence-based standards, who's in touch enough with reality to make decisions, or if perhaps we're electing someone whose methods for making decisions tend more towards the woo, supernatural, superstitious side, because I think that's important. I don't want to kind of disregard all that.
And that was what I was trying to get at. I mean, do you, as an atheist, ever see a point where religion should be considered when picking a leader at any government, or should be included in the debate?
I can think of one example. If a candidate is running and he says that his religion will absolutely influence his running of office, then I would say that that should be included in the debate. I would want to know more about that, about his religion, if he was telling me that he was going to govern from his religion.
And also, I think there have been some candidates, some good ones in the past, who have made claims to say, these are my personal beliefs, but I understand that I'm being elected to a position where I represent a plurality, and so instead of simply legislating based on my beliefs or working to enact my own beliefs, I'm actually going to be a good representative of the people as a whole that I'm elected to represent. I think I can be okay with that. I mean, you know, we're talking about a country that's predominantly Christian, including our current president, and so when I'm deciding who to vote, I don't ever go to a checkbox that says, oh, Christian, Mormon, you know, Buddhist, whatever, and eliminate based on that sole criteria. But as I'm listening to these discussions, when I hear individuals whose views, which stem from their religious beliefs, are drastically divergent from mine and from, I think, the Constitution and from, I think, basic, sane, governance, I have to object, and it's not my fault that those positions may be derived from their religion.
Okay. Well, that's basically what I was wondering. Personally, as a theist, I'm happy to live in a secular society that we don't do it, because I see only in a secular society can we ever have true freedom from religion,
Sure.
for religion, and other states.
Completely agree.
Anyway, thank you very much for your time. I know you have other callers that are probably a little more combative than I am, so we'll see what happens. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Robert.
And I want to plug Americans United for Separation of Church and State, headed by a Church of Christ pastor. Mm-hmm. So they agree that religious freedom is best served by the government having no position on religion.
Yeah, it really is kind of straightforward. There have been a number of things, and the ACA is a nonpartisan group. I'm not picking sides. And actually, while I have been on many occasions a liberal Democrat, I used to be a conservative Republican, I'll vacillate to whichever candidate actually best represents my views at the time. Sure. And so when we see, it's one of the reasons why I've been really interested in this primary more than some of the others. There were moments of schadenfreude where it was fun to watch them kind of eat their own. And then also there were some really great points in various debates where I found them some of them making good points and being presidential even. So, I'm not advocating anybody, I'm not ruling anybody out.
Well, it's like you said, I mean, we can hardly, as an atheist, I can hardly avoid. Yeah. I can't avoid voting for religious. If I'm going to vote, I'm going to be probably voting for a president who claims to have some religious beliefs.
Yeah, not only that, but because religion is so foundational to what many people are, what their beliefs are, it's almost impossible to avoid those kinds of questions, because religion kind of has its fingers into every little aspect of our lives. And so I'm trying to think of, there aren't too many questions you could ask that don't run the risk of coming back to religion at some point.
Sure.
Excuse me. Right down to even, financial questions of how are we going to divvy up the money, because there are organizations that don't want to give, religions don't want to give money to competing religions. And, a secular government like the one that we have shouldn't be giving money to religious organizations that are going to use that money to discriminate. And so that's where that wall of separation comes in.
Sure.
But I don't want to soapbox too much. We got Jonathan in Arlington. How are you?
Hey, I'm pretty good.
You're on the line.
This is my second time calling. I enjoy your show.
Thank you.
The reason I was calling was, first of all, I'm a theist caller. Much like the previous caller, I believe in a God that is unfalsifiable. In other words, can't be demonstrated.
And do you have any good reason why you would believe in anything that's unfalsifiable?
Well, my primary reason is that's how I was raised. So that's my, in a sense, default position. From there, from watching your show and from doing research, I gradually transitioned from the fundamentalist belief as far as holding the Bible as being the inspired word of God, and I'm kind of transitioning to the middle. And before crossing over, I'm in this position of belief in an unfalsifiable God, if that makes sense.
Well, it does and it doesn't. I mean, it makes sense in the sense that I've heard other people say this before, and it doesn't make sense in that I have a really hard time grasping how anybody can both understand that they believe something that they don't have a good reason for and actually still believe it.
Well, the reason why I was indoctrinated. That's how I was indoctrinated in that belief. But the reason why I still believe it is because, I mean, it provides hope. It provides happiness for me. And to
Sure.
me, that's a good reason.
I've heard that quite a few times, but my question is, don't you care whether it's actually true? Because
of course.
if it's not true, does it really matter that it's providing hope, and isn't that false hope?
No, I do care if it's true. But when it's concerning something that's unfalsifiable, the truth to me is kind of moot because I can't ascertain that truth in this life. The belief that the God that I believe in is a God that is the creator of existence, and that I will meet upon my death after I die. And that's something that, while I do care about the truth of that claim, it's unfalsifiable. I can't demonstrate. I can't examine what happens to me after I die.
But you're kind of shifting the burden of proof. You're saying that you're justified in believing it because it can't be disproved. Are you going to go around believing every God hypothesis that can't be disproved?
Not just because it can't be disproved. Because it can't be disproved is the foundation, and because it makes me happy and it doesn't harm anybody. Those three tenets are the foundation of why I believe in it. Because it can't be disproved, it's unfalsifiable. It makes me happy, and it also is benign. It doesn't affect anybody else.
Okay, I'll let you go right after this. I reject your claim that it doesn't hurt anybody. I would argue that it's actually hurting you, and that by accepting a proposition that you don't know to be true, you are limiting the options on your ability to discover what's actually true. And there are countless things that provide hope. And if you're actually concerned about whether or not it's true, I'd think that you'd take the steps to try and find out. But I know Tracie wanted to.
I was just going to say that accepting unfalsifiable things as true is not reasonable. I mean, that's my only point.
Yeah, I mean, just as a matter of definition, you're being
There's a
irrational.
difference between saying I have reasons which are sort of like causes for why you believe it, like it makes me happy, versus reasons that are reasonable, logical premises that lead to the belief.
The definition for logic is just a particular method of reasoning. So this is my method of reasoning. Whether you agree with that.
No, I'm talking about there's two different ways people use the word reason. You know, there may be like I can say, if somebody says to me, you know, why did all these people die in the plane crash, and I say, well, the reason is the engine failed. That's not really answering their question of, you know, was there some reason, meaning was there like an intent behind this. So when people use the word reason, they sometimes have different meanings. And when we have, there are certain things that people can believe that seem to make no sense, and we'll see someone do something and it seems really senseless. I have no doubt that there's like an addiction, for example, it would be a good example of something for which there are underlying causes, but it's not actually like a conscious, reasonable thing to do, that you've got like these reasonable steps that are making sense and this is why you're doing it to reach this goal and blah, blah. It's not like that. There's like underlying causes for it, but it's an unreasonable thing because it actually destroys your life.
Well, you said destroys your life, and Matt, you also
Addiction I'm talking about. I'm talking about, I was using addiction as an example to just say that this is something where there are actually causes for why the person would employ a thing that hurts them. But in reality, it's when you're talking about reasonable, as in, does the person have a good explanation for why they would do this to themselves? They don't.
But Matt, you specifically said you think it's harmful, correct?
Addiction is, I was just simply using...
He's talking about what I said.
I'm sorry. You're talking about...
Yeah, I did. Actually, I'll hit a couple things real quick. One of the things that you started to say before we kind of interrupted you was that this is your own logic. You know, that okay, great. You can have your own quote-unquote logic, but you might as well be asserting that you have your own reality, in which case you've now divorced yourself from any sort of reasonable discussion. There isn't independent logics. I don't have my logic and you have your logic. There's just logical reasoning, and there's just the truth in the sense that we actually share truth and exist in the same universe. But where I'm saying that I find it harmful is you'd like to believe that the beliefs you hold don't affect anybody else and don't hurt anybody else. And I'd say that not only is that irrelevant if it's hurting you, but it's also untrue. Your beliefs don't live in a vacuum. Your beliefs have consequences. They affect your actions, they affect the decisions you make, and your decisions and your actions have consequences for yourself and for other people. You don't live as the only person on a planet. And so knowingly believing something that is irrational and trying to pretend that it doesn't affect anything is itself harmful. Not to mention the harm that you're ignoring. It may be minor things. I'm not saying that this is going to lead you, to be, raping people or murdering people or destroying. It's little harms, but they accumulate. And my thing is that I fail to see why somebody would knowingly be irrational and knowingly take risks about the truth when we have ways of living that don't require people to accept things without justification.
Well, there's two things I kind of want to talk about. The first thing is when you said it's possibly harmful because now I'm in other words, if I just accept God as being true because it's unfalsifiable and it makes me happy, then I exclude myself from finding truth, and I don't see that as being mutually exclusive. I can see a scenario where I can still use scientific evidence for things which I consider falsifiable, things which can be observed. While also,
no, you're excluding yourself from finding out the truth of that question.
Oh, of that question.
Yeah. Well, you've accepted a position without reason, and so at the point when you accept a proposition as true, that's the point at which you stop looking for the actual answer.
But if that proposition, if we can both come to an agreement that proposition is unfalsifiable,
we can't though. The question of whether or not a God exists is not a proposition that I necessarily accept as falsifiable. You said that you believe in a God that you are unfalsifiable. Yeah, unfalsifiable. You said that you believe in a God that's unfalsifiable. That's fine. My question is the bigger issue of does a God actually exist is not something that is necessarily unfalsifiable under every definition. But if it is, then the only rational position is to not accept that the claim is true. Otherwise, if you're going to be consistent and rational, how many other unsupported, unfalsifiable claims would you have to accept as true? You would be putting yourself in the position of being forced to either accept conflicting views or to cherry pick and pick the one that you like, which is what you've said you've done.
But why shouldn't one accept something that's unfalsifiable? And you said I'm defining the God that I believe in because that makes it easy for everybody to be on the same page with this guy.
You said you cared whether or not this was true.
I do care if it's true. And
then why would you accept something before you knew that it was true?
Because for me, I should believe that God exists, or I should believe that there is a God because, number one, it's true that it makes me happy as well. So there's more than just one truth of whether or not that God actually exists.
No. There's one truth. It's either a God exists or a God does not exist. That's it. Whether it makes you happy is a separate question. You said you cared about truth, and I'm talking about the truth of whether or not a God exists. You're accepting that a God exists while acknowledging that you cannot possibly discern this truth, and you're doing it because it makes you happy.
But why?
Maybe somebody. What if somebody proposed to you that heroin was good for you, and you decided to accept that because taking heroin makes you happy?
Well, that could be demonstrated that it's not good for you.
I understand. I'm sorry that I picked something that's actually, demonstrable, but it doesn't make any difference. If your primary reason is doing it because it makes you happy and you don't care whether or not it has been or could be justifiable, then you are in exactly the same position.
That is not my primary reason. That's my primary reason when it cannot be proven, when it cannot be examined. So for anything that can't be proven, you're willing to accept that it's true as long as it makes you feel good. As long as it makes me feel good and it doesn't harm others.
Why would you do that? Hang on. As long as it makes you feel good and it doesn't harm others?
For instance, I could say, well, it might make you feel good to go kill other people. And this is based on the assumption that pleasure
why do you think that what you believe doesn't have any kind of impact on others? It's making me sad that you're irrational. You are harming me.
Well, even non-believers, even non-belief is a sort of belief. I mean, you could say everything affects others. You believe that you shouldn't believe.
No.
That can affect others right there.
My position is that beliefs should be reserved until evidence supports the claim.
Do you believe that?
Yes.
Well, even so, that belief can affect others. Everything can affect others.
Yes.
That's my point.
Yeah.
And you have to be reasonable about whether you think it harms others. And I'm not saying it 100% it doesn't harm anybody.
There we go. Now you've gotten rid of this doesn't harm people. So what level of harm are you going to tolerate in your irrational beliefs?
Well, I'm sorry, hold on for a second. This is based upon assumptions that pleasure is preferable to pain, and I don't have a gauge for what's the pleasure scale or what's the pain scale.
Sure.
So obviously it takes some common sense. So I'm not saying it doesn't affect anybody at all, but I'm comparing it to religious beliefs where they actually go bomb buildings and it makes them happy. That
Sure.
harms people. So
your religious beliefs are better than the people who are calling for jihads. Big whoop.
Well, you asked me what I consider not harming people. I'm trying to give you an example.
I understand that, but you're doing that to avoid this issue of truth.
Well, can I just say that when somebody asserts that a God exists, they're actually supporting the foundation of something that is a religion that bombs buildings? I mean, when a person says that a God exists to somebody that would bomb a building for their God, you are validating their foundational problematic belief, which is that this God even exists.
I don't necessarily. I think that's kind of a slippery slope. I mean, I see where you're going with that, but any foundation could be, especially when it's a broad foundation, could be invoked by somebody who wants to do harm.
Right, but what I'm saying is that it is their willingness to accept the irrational belief that a God exists that leads to that slippery slope. Once you have that belief and you're willing to accept things for bad reasons or for no reason whatsoever, then what stops you from accepting that God wants you to do something and that something may be something that appears harmful, but really the God knows best, and you have to trust.
I'll actually agree with him there that's a potential slippery slope fallacy, because there may be other mitigating factors that would stop him.
But I'm not saying that he would do it. I'm just saying that the person who would do it sees him as validating their underlying belief in God.
It's the one thing we've said many times before is that liberal and moderate Christians or theologians or theists, whatever, serve as validators for the more fundamentalist ones. And by the way, it's not that you just believe a God exists. You're not a deist. You have specific concepts of God that you've already presented, which is that you're going to meet him after you die.
Well, just claiming that it's not falsifiable is a claim of knowledge about that God.
Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure. It seems to me that you've begun with some sort of traditional religious belief of a God, and then tried to extract all of the things that you weren't happy with, and keep the rest because they make you happy and they haven't been disproven, and you don't think it hurts anybody. Which to me means that you actually do not care whether it's true, despite your claim that you do.
Yeah, I can only tell you what I care about, and if it seems like I don't care about truth to you, I mean, that's your opinion. I do care about truth.
Yeah, it is my opinion, but when I say, do you care about truth, and you say, yes, but I believe this thing irrespective of whether it's true or not, I'd say that there's an obvious conflict there.
I didn't say irrespective of it's true or not. I said the truth cannot be ascertained right now.
Well,
that's the same thing.
Irrespective of whether it's true or not is equivalent to cannot be attained.
In other words, you can't know if it's true or not, but you're willing to believe it because it makes you happy. So
That's not somebody who
you're willing to
truth.
sacrifice whether your beliefs, whether or not the belief is true, takes a back seat to whether or not it makes you happy.
Which brings
But if it was proven to be false, I wouldn't believe it though.
Well, that's
a
shifting of the burden of proof.
But my question is, why shouldn't I do that?
Because shifting the burden of proof is irrational.
Well, no, the reason, what Matt was saying was, the reason he thinks you shouldn't do it is because he thinks you should care about whether or not your beliefs are more likely to be true. But you're saying that only matters to you in cases where the belief doesn't make you happy. If the belief makes you happy and isn't, in your opinion, harmful to others, then if it's untrue, you're okay believing it. You don't care as long as it can't be proven. So,
well, when I look at unfalsifiable, I look at that truth value as being almost like moot. Like,
yeah, Yeah, so why would you assign it a positive truth value if you know that value is moot, and you're saying because it makes me happy and I don't see it as all that harmful? And so what you're then saying is, I'm okay believing things that have no validity in the realm of truth value.
Yes, correct.
And I'll accept them as true, and I don't care if it's true or not. It just makes me feel good. It doesn't hurt anybody. And that's been saying you don't seem to care whether or not it's true. And
it's a level of cognitive dissonance where you are simultaneously holding the position, this claim has no truth value. I believe this claim is true. That is a conflict. And if you think that that doesn't do harm to your thought processes and your decision-making processes, you are beyond, I mean, you have managed to delude yourself because you're desperately trying to cling to two propositions that are mutually exclusive. You have stated them both here.
Let me clarify myself. It has a truth value. I don't think you can ascertain it. My belief is in a God that I will meet after I die. I can't ascertain what will happen after I die. The truth value is there. I can't get to it until after I die.
How do you know? How do you know that the truth value is unobtainable?
Based on my belief of a God that I will meet after this life, logic states I have to be after this life to know if that God exists. If you ask me what God do I believe, that is the God that I believe.
So the only characteristic of your God is some entity that you meet after you're dead.
Exactly.
Okay, that is it. That's it. That's the only characteristic.
Yes.
Okay, I can falsify that God.
Go ahead.
What makes you think that you're going to exist after you're dead when every piece of evidence and everything that we use to identify what a person is ceases at the moment they're dead?
Well, I don't think we know that. We can see somebody after they're dead. We don't know.
What reason do you have? What is it about you that you think will persist after your death, and why do you think that that's likely?
Why do I think it's likely that I believe that I will persist after I'm dead?
I know you believe that.
How?
I'm saying why. What is the mechanism? Because here's the thing. We have done tons of research, and while we don't completely understand the brain, we do know that the brain is the seat of who we are. It's where our likes, our preferences, our passions, our thoughts, our memories, and everything else reside. We have seen people who, through brain trauma, have had their memories reset, their personalities shifted, split brain patients, where they develop two completely separate personalities, in some cases where one is a theist and the other one is an atheist. This demonstrates to an almost certainty that the brain is malleable, and it's not simply a conduit for a soul. It is, the mind is an emergent property of the brain. We know that brains stop functioning at death, and therefore, since I could be born and have a brain accident today that completely wipes my personality such that I'm now, for all intents and purposes, a different individual with different preferences and a different personality, and then I die, that death is indistinguishable from the accident that wiped me the first time. So did I just have multiple souls that went on to meet this God of yours? Or, I mean, what is the justification for thinking that anything that makes you exists after you're dead?
Well, at that point, you would have multiple personalities. That's who you are.
I don't have multiple personalities. One personality is gone at that moment.
Well, that personality is gone. Whatever happens to your brain is just like anything that happens to any other part of your body.
I agree.
It affects your body, but
I agree.
What's
your justification for thinking it affects more than that?
My justification is the same with my other justification. I believe it because I hope for it to be true, and I know I can't prove it. I know it can't be proven until after death, when it can be examined. If I was to die and then all of a sudden I entered into this afterlife, I can examine that afterlife. But until I die, I can't. So to me, it's unfalsifiable. So that's the primary reason why I believe it.
But you don't really know of any mechanism that would explain how a person could persist after death.
No, I don't know. No, I don't claim knowledge of anything. It's simply belief.
Okay.
Yeah. So you don't care about truth. You believe whatever's comfortable to you.
Well, I wouldn't say whatever because this is not. I don't do it. But I wouldn't say okay.
If it hasn't been disproved to you, you'll believe it as long as it's comfortable. That is not someone who cares about truth. And it's thoughts like that, this idea of a persistent soul, that have done almost immeasurable harm against dealing with people who have brain disorders, brain damage, all the research about defining who we are and understanding what our brains do and how it works. That stuff is completely hindered by this absolutely unjustified, nonsensical notion that you're going to continue on after you're dead. That's wishful thinking. It has nothing to do with truth.
My question again is, why shouldn't one thing, and you say it's because it's irrational. Well, to me, it's going to go in a circle. Why shouldn't one believe that? When it's unfalsifiable, obviously, this is all I'm talking about. Why shouldn't one believe what one hopes to be true? What good reason do I have not to?
Because once you believe that something is true, boy, I thought I explained this. Once you believe that something is true, it inhibits your ability, it stops you from looking for an actual answer. Now, you're comfortable doing that because you've already decided, without any supporting evidence, that these are questions that simply can't be proven, which actually demonstrates the problem. You've come up with an issue and said, oh, we can't ever prove this one way or the other, so I'm going to believe whatever's comfortable for me, which stops you from continuing to investigate to find out whether or not we actually could know one way or the other.
Well, I don't
and
agree
you've
with that.
defined it in...
I don't think it stops me from searching. I don't agree with that premise. Why would it stop?
Why would you continue to search for the right answer once you think you have the right answer? How many examples of cognitive dissonance are you going to give in one call? I believe I have the truth, but I'm going to keep looking for the real truth.
So there's never a scenario where scientists think they have the right answer, but keep on searching to make sure that that's never...
Scientists don't assert truth.
Well, anybody for that matter. There's no scenario where somebody would think they have the truth, but keep searching.
Not when you've already determined that you think it's not that you think it's unfalsifiable. So, in other words, you can't to think that something will never be known. You almost have to assert that you can know everything, because you'd have to say that there is no piece of knowledge that we could come across that would allow us to know this. And I don't know how you would know that. That to me is confusing.
I believe it's unfalsifiable, but tomorrow I might not. If I keep searching, maybe I can search and maybe it won't be unfalsifiable.
I highly recommend it.
Not searching. You said, why do I believe it? Because right now I believe it's unfalsifiable. But, I'm not going to stop searching because who knows what the future may bring.
Why?
Yeah, I guess with me, if something has a null truth value, I would just simply call that an unknown. I wouldn't call it true.
Yeah. Well, this has the potential of going around in a circle. I just kind of wanted to get your input. Now, I see where you're coming from with the potential of not searching if you think it's null. I could see how one could think that. But
the big issue is what Tracie just said. If something's unknown, it's unknown, and it's dishonest to apply a truth value to it. Whether you think it's falsifiable or not, it's dishonest to say, I believe X is true, and to simultaneously acknowledge that it's an unknown. You're being dishonest to yourself, which you're entitled to do. My point is that I don't see I don't see that as a life that is concerned with truth if you're lying to yourself in the process.
Well, I'll let you guys get the more calls. I'll listen to this conversation again and see if I can find any contradictions, because I am concerned with truth. So
thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate the call.
Thank you.
Bye.
As a reminder, we're heading to dinner after the show's over. El Arroyo at 5th and Campbell. Any atheist or atheist-friendly persons welcome to come down and join us. And we've got Ruben in Austin. How are you?
Hi, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Okay, I just listened to your discussion there. Could have gone all day. And I just want to say that you were asking for proof to some, in regards to whether there's a God or not. Some things you can't prove.
Okay. I don't really think that's what we were asking. But if there's some things that you can't prove.
When you started the show, that's what you stated.
Sure.
Proof, to believe in something without proof, something along those lines. And, you're right there in that room, and, infinity, you can't prove infinity. You got galaxies and all that, and you can't.
You might want to turn down your TV. You might want to turn down your TV because we're getting an echo.
You might want to turn down your TV because we're getting an echo.
See, there I am telling you. So what exactly is it you're saying? Because I hear it just, no offense, but it's kind of rambled from I'm sitting here to infinity to galaxies. What's the point?
Know, some things you can't prove. I mean, you're trying to get proof for this and that, and some things you can, some things you can't.
Yes, and the things that you can't prove, you shouldn't believe them.
Right.
No. I mean,
yes.
If that's some people as humans, we got a choice to believe or not. Or,
yes, you have a choice. Well, to the extent that
and
you do.
if you experience one thing, and another person doesn't experience it, that's what happened to them. And like 3 weeks ago, you had Don and one of your co-hosts, and your co-host said that he didn't believe in evolution, and where was his proof? He didn't say it, and Don.
I don't think there's ever been anybody on this show,
elaborate on it.
Ruben, I don't think there's ever been anybody on this show who said they didn't believe in evolution.
Yes, if you checked your show, you were gone. Yeah, if you checked your shows, you were gone, and he was a young fellow, kind of slim.
Well, Don and Russell were the ones that hosted the last time Matt wasn't on.
Well, no, it wasn't.
Okay, let me put a stop.
Guy,
Ruben,
he was sitting where you are, Jeanette.
Ruben, let me put a stop to this right now. I don't care. If somebody else said they didn't believe in evolution, I'd have to think, considering I know all these people, that it's a slip of the tongue. But it doesn't matter. Even if Tracie told me right now that she doesn't believe in evolution, it doesn't make one bit of difference to this discussion because she'd be wrong.
Well, it would be it would be her choice. I mean, her belief.
Absolutely.
And I would be wrong.
Yeah, Tracie could choose to. Yeah, I don't believe that beliefs are honestly a choice in a simple sense. You can't just choose to believe something, but I think that might completely derail this conversation. What I will say is that you are free to believe as your conscience dictates, and if that means that you don't believe in evolution, you're free to do that. I'm saying that you're wrong if that's the case.
Exactly, and
exactly.
Your co-host, what he did, he elaborated on not believing in evolution, and that was his choice. And I don't know, Don didn't pursue his reasons to.
Why are you still going on about this? Because it was either a slip of the tongue or a mistake, or you misheard it, or whatever. But it doesn't make any difference. I just told you that.
No, even Don, he insinuated in regards to that, and that co-host that you had, he elaborated again, and that was the end of it.
Ruben, what part of it doesn't make a damn bit of difference do you not understand?
Well, as humans, we got choices, and your co-host had the choice of not believing in evolution.
Well, look, we don't have the co-host here to defend their positions. There are times I've heard some people say I don't believe in X because I know it to be true. I still haven't heard any of our hosts take that particular position either. We tend to define belief as holding something as true. So whether we would call it knowledge or belief, if we're that committed to it to call it truth, then it would be irrelevant.
Well, look it up. He was on there about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I've been watching your show for
many years.
He was on there. Look it up, and you'll see it.
Yeah, Ruben, I don't care. What's the point of the call?
Huh? Well, just like I stated, that some things you can't have proof
in front of you. Now we're getting somewhere. Some things you can't prove. Okay.
Exactly. Like infinity.
No, stop, Ruben.
Oh, evolution can't be proved.
Evolution can't be proved? Are you saying that?
Well, not according to your co-host. If you look about 3.
Hey, Ruben, I'm going to hang up on you in about 10 seconds. I swear to your God.
What was that again?
I swear to God. I swear to your God. I will hang up on you in about 10 seconds if you don't keep going back to what my co-host said, because he's not here to defend it. I think you're being stupidly absurd, and I've already. And if you never mind,
got choices.
Never mind. I choose to hang up on your ass. Devin in Floral Park, how are you?
Fine.
Thanks for waiting.
Yes.
Oh, no, it's fine. I've been thinking about why people have this incessant urge to know about the beginning of the universe, which is inherently unknowable. I don't care what you say. And I believe it will hurt the scientific community if the Big Bang Theory, which we assert to be true, I know that we say that, oh, it's still just a theory, and if it's wrong, it's wrong. But unfortunately, if we keep putting out this Big Bang Theory, and it turns out to be wrong, it will give the religious community ammunition against us. And I believe that it's a religious desire that's making us stalk the beginning.
Hey, Devin,
Yes?
if you don't care what we say, why should we keep you on the line?
No, I'm saying, my question is, why do we incessantly want to know about the beginning? It's more of a, why do we want to know this?
Yeah, it's because of who we are. We're naturally curious. It's a big old honking question that we don't have a complete understanding of. Why wouldn't you want to know?
Wait a minute. I would like to just say that there's tons of people that I don't think even care.
Yeah, there probably
I mean,
are.
I work with
Yes,
people that I don't
and
think are pursuing that
another thing is
question.
that
But it's not a religious question.
They make it a religious question. I mean, there are people who make it a religious question.
The fact that people have offered religious explanations doesn't make the question religious. You could offer a religious explanation for anything. I mean, you could say that angels hold us to the ground as an explanation for gravity. But that doesn't make the question of gravity any less natural.
Yeah, and I would say that on the program when I address it, I normally point out that this is a theory put forward by physicists and astrophysicists, I guess, cosmologists, and I hold no position on it because it's far above my level of comprehension. I know the most basic things that I've read, but I certainly am not one that would say that I'm qualified to defend that theory, and so I tend to just say, and so, what are your reasons for thinking God did it?
But your fear that this is, if it turns out to be wrong, we'll just be given ammunition to the religious. No, and that's a completely unfounded fear, because what we're talking about here is a scientific theory. This isn't a hunch. This isn't a meager hypothesis. This is a theory, and that's the graduation point. And science puts forth all of its theories and models as tentative explanations, and they are the best explanations given the evidence that we have, and nobody's asserting that it's absolute truth. What we do know is that the Big Bang model has been confirmed by direct observation of cosmic microwave background radiation. That the predictions that this theory made bore out evidence. And so while it may be that our fundamental understanding of the origins of the universe change and continue to grow and continue to develop, I think that's inevitable, it's not like we're going to turn this on its head. It's almost impossible that we would turn Big Bang cosmology on its head that in such a way that it would give opening to religious models.
And my point is that we're trying to figure out what happened at the beginning, and you say that that's because of who we are. But look at who works on the Big Bang Theory. One of the major people who influenced it. I'm not sure of his name, but he was, I think, the person who coined the Big Bang Theory. Although the term Big Bang was actually used as an insulting joke. But one of the people who worked on it was, in fact, a priest. And so I believe that the people who want to know about the beginning are trying to figure it out simply for a reason to talk about the beginning. It's a religious fear.
That's absurd. What difference does it make if it was a priest? Do you know how many priests and theologians have been responsible for scientific discoveries throughout the course of history? How many religious people?
Well, Hawking just came out and pretty much clearly stated that he doesn't think that a God is necessary for it based on his knowledge of it.
Yeah, and Laplace did too, but Hawking's a little newer. But the fact that somebody who, look at who worked on it, it was a priest. So what?
Actually, for the beginning, it's not so what. For the beginning, it's more of, they're trying to exert some sort of force of, in the Christian example, form of Genesis.
Then why do they keep asserting that no God is necessary based on the physical models that they have currently available?
That's Hawking. I'm talking about.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know of anybody that's putting forward that Big Bang is evidence of God that is publishing.
No, because they know that would be inherently rejected by the scientific community.
Of which they are.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. Your thing is, look who started this. Priests were doing it. Well, who cares as long as they got to the right answer? I don't care if their goal was to try and confirm Genesis. They failed. That's the point. They should be applauded for that.
Yeah, but I'm saying that it's irrelevant what's happened at the beginning, and that trying to figure out what happened to the beginning is a waste of time.
Why?
We shouldn't really be trying to figure out the beginning. We should be trying to put our resources on something more practical. And if the Big Bang Theory is by some means proven false, that will, again, give ammunition to the religious community.
I respectfully disagree.
Right.
I respectfully disagree. In my opinion, you are tilting at absurd windmills, because I am of the opinion that no knowledge is a waste of time, and that this process of trying to understand our origins has led to some of the most amazing discoveries about physics and cosmology, which have benefits about how we're going to continue living after. These aren't empty questions. This isn't, hey, I really don't care who my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather had sex with on March 13th. That's not the equivalent question. These are big questions. And the things that we learn while trying to answer this question help us answer other questions. And some of those questions I think you'd probably think are kind of important.
Most certainly. I mean, like, for example, many of the advancements in the knowledge of the Hubble ultra-deep field, many of the advances in modern astrophysics have been due to an even study of black holes.
Sure.
And yes, because they're tied. But the point is that we're putting, I think, too much effort into figuring out what happened at the beginning, because it's inherently unknowable, and it's backed by this.
How can you say it's inherently unknowable? How do you know what's not ever knowable?
Because to go back to a non-falsifiable belief, to go back to what people say is an unfalsifiable belief, the beginning is inherently unfalsifiable.
How do you say this?
Because we're not there, and because any observation of it is only an observation of what's happening now. Trying to then extrapolate that, going back.
You could just as easily say that about evolutionary theory as like a lot of
murder that happened the other day.
Fossil records, whereas we don't have fossil records of galaxies.
You have evidence that is here.
Okay, fossil records of galaxies would be. Actually, we do kind of have fossil records of galaxies, because the universe has many of them, and they've been born and died, and we can look at them in various stages of progression throughout the universe. But what you're talking about by fossil record is absurd, because it begins with the assumption that universes form by the same means. I don't care, even if it is ultimately an unanswerable question. I don't know where you get off saying that we're wasting too much time on it. Exactly how much effort and funding is being spent on Big Bang cosmology? What is the science budget for that makes this a problem? What is the brain resource, the manpower being used on this that makes it a waste of time?
Because
do you have any numbers?
What?
Do you have any numbers?
No, I don't know numbers.
Then you can't. Then you're quantifying
all that money.
Then you're quantifying something that is not quantified by you. You're exaggerating. And on that note, I'm sorry, we have to go. The show's over. Thanks everybody for tuning in. There won't be a show next week because it's the 5th Sunday, but there will be the week after that. Thanks everybody. There is a show next week, and I'll be here. Damn it!
But I won't.
Take care.